Well, hello, hello, hello. Anybody watching? I'm gonna be working on this piece again today. I don't normally stream on Mondays, but I really need to finish this guy up. So we're gonna be doing that, and yeah. So if I happen to finish him in a reasonable amount of time, we're gonna move on to this guy, who's like a barbarian dwarf guy with like muscles and muscles and like his muscles have muscles. Pretty sure this guy needs to be tested for roids. All I'm saying. Like, he is not going to pee clean. No chance. So, mainly what's left to do is the face and the purple, and I don't really like the arms. So, we're going to have to do something about the arms at some point. And I got to decide what I'm going to do about the arms. But we're going to focus mainly on the purple today. So, we were at dark purple. We're going to go up through dark purple, purple, magenta, and pale pink. So, what is up, Brutes Monkey? How are you doing? Having a good night? We're gonna wait around for a moment here. See if anybody else kind of shows up before we get rolling here. So far, I'm digging how he's turning out. I think the scales look good, and the scales are kind of the thing about this. So we're just gonna hang out here for a second, and then we'll get rolling. Won't be too long here. And get what brushes we need. We're gonna use Smush Brush. Trying to find my other one. I have another smaller brush that I kind of need to use. There it is. We're gonna use those. We'll probably use some of my normal brushes too. Break out those, and then we'll be using a little bit of airbrush. If you were around last night and you saw where I discovered that I clogged my airbrush, I left primer in it all night. I got that cleaned out today. Ultimately, all I really ended up doing was soaking it in alcohol and like 99% rubbing alcohol, and that just took care of it right away. Yeah, so this is kind of the range we're gonna go up through. We're not probably gonna go quite this bright. I think it'll compete too much, but we'll see. So purple, dark purple, purple, magenta. This, we might put a little bit of the pale yellow into the highlights too. We'll just have to see how that goes. I don't really want the fins here. I don't really want the purple to compete with the scales, but we'll see how it looks. I don't know. So right now we've base coated in dark purple. We're going to move up and we're just going to focus right now on just creating a little bit of transition. We're not at the point that we need to be real exact with it yet. So that point will come, we're just not there yet. So we're just going to take some of our purple and dark purple, and we're just, it's not really a dry brush, it's more like a we're just dabbing it on there to kind of help create this kind of transition. There's a little bit of dry brushing, but really we're just focusing on helping to kind of make a smooth transition. Like I said before, I almost always use non-traditional brush shapes because they're just easier to blend with. It's 100 times easier to blend with a brush like this over any kind of surface than it is with a pointed round brush. Right, so pointed round brushes, like, you could be doing this all day using some sort of a standard pointed round brush, so we don't want to do that. The goal here is to be relatively fast, right? Right? We actually do want to get down in those crevices a little bit, because this is a pretty topmost surface. If we don't, when we go to highlight this more, it's going to make those look like super contrasty to the point that we don't really want it. I think I need to move this camera over just a little bit. When you're highlighting up areas that have lots of texture or grooves and stuff like that, remember, we don't have to give everything extreme amount of contrast. So like when we're doing like hair, for example, you need to paint it largely as kind of the overall shape of the hair without messing with the individual hairs until you're almost really at the very end. It's only at the very, very end that you start messing with individual hairs. If you move on to doing that too soon, it just looks weird. I actually saw like fairly top level painter make that mistake on a stream the other day, and he was painting hair and he kind of got done with the hair like on a first pass, and he's like, this doesn't look right, and I'm not sure why. And it was because he had painted individual hairs just way too much. And it took him a few moments, and then it dawned on him kind of what he did, and he really had to mostly start over at that point, which kind of sucks. But there just really isn't anything to do if you've kind of done that. And we're just adding some shade, some highlights here. We're gonna work up much brighter than this. Right? Always need to be thinking about like the shapes of your surfaces and know how light would react to them, and like I don't need to be highlighting each one of these individual like spine things until we get towards the very end, and then I've even got to decide if we even really need to do it then. This is one of those things where if you start doing something like that, you just really make a lot of extra work for yourself. I'm gonna need way more of this purple. I often refer to a lot of what I do as kind of like sketching in, right? So I'm basically kind of doing things semi-rough, and then the more that it progresses, we kind of refine and refine and refine, right? So we use bigger brushes to kind of define the overall feel of things, and then when we kind of have that feeling defined, we kind of know what we need to do, then we can come back in with smaller brushes and kind of add in the details and stuff like that. It's just a much, much faster way of doing it than trying to start from the get-go. Just using tiny, tiny brushes for everything. You can say we're making pretty fast work of this, and it's looking pretty good, right? We're getting, I mean, I've only got less than 2.5 hours in this guy so far. I think this guy will probably be under 4 hours for the whole job, I would I would guess. So anytime we can say we paint any level of dragon in 4 hours is, you know, we got to take that as a win, right? So we're just trying to be relatively careful here that we don't hit our existing blue bits. If we get a little bit on them, it's not the end of the world. We can go back and touch it up as we need to. We don't have a lot of like flat smooth surfaces here, which is really nice. If we had a lot of flat smooth surfaces and we hit something, then it can be a real pain to blend it. But when we have a lot of texture and stuff like that, like we've got on this model, then it makes kind of going back to touch things up a lot easier because we don't have to be super exact. Just has to look kind of close, right? I don't know what song is on my headphones right now, but it's like super depressing. I think I got a little down in here. Let's see if I can get it off. Yeah, just a little purple, the brush there. Not going to be the end of the world. Yeah, I don't think that's ever actually in any place we'll see, so that's fine too. Just working on kind of highlighting up through our I'm going to call these all the fins, I guess. Working up through purples and then some pink. We're just going for that kind of deep ocean. I'm just using this to blow dry some of it because I put some water down to fix a mess up there. Just trying to. I think this is actually coming off. What's the word that everybody's doing? Synthwave. I have no idea what that is, but that seems to be these colors, right? I don't know where that started or why that started, but that's a thing. We don't want to do a lot of shading under here because there's not a lot of highlights that would happen. We're not really going to see too much of it anyways, ever. Like ever. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we do want to do something. I think we got everything has one level of highlight. So, this does. So we're going to add a little bit of our magenta into our purple. And it's not a drastic value change. It's definitely a different hue. And it's a little brighter, but it's not like hugely brighter. So we're really doing a more of a color shift here than a traditional highlight, which is fine because we're looking for that color shift. But we want to be a bit subtle with this, right? Because it's not going to want to blend real well. So what we're going to need to do is be at least a little subtle with it. So it's definitely a little brighter, but it's not a lot. The idea here is that we're just adding in some non real specific highlights, just real subtle stuff here. And we're never going to go really super strong on these highlights. Right? We're just adding in some color here. Because it's really going to pop against that teal is the main thing. I'm leaving the arms mostly alone right now, because the arms are going to require me to do a fair amount of detail work here. So I'm probably going to have to break out some actual real brushes, so to speak, to do the arms and stuff like that. Trying to use a motion that's gonna, for the most part, try to prevent a lot of hard edges. Okay. See, we're getting this. It's coming together. I'm digging it. We're gonna do just a little bit as it comes up here. Under, this is under, so we really don't want too much. But you will see a little bit here, so we're gonna do some. And then as we come over, we'll do more. Just working up nice and subtle highlights here. Luckily, these pens I've got them on are holding surprisingly well. I was a little worried that they weren't going to hold well. If you're watching, welcome. We are working on a water dragon from a upcoming Kickstarter called Asian Adventures. We're just working on some of our purple fins here. I think I forgot this part last time. Okay, I think we're ready to start on our more. We gotta get this over here. Our more extreme highlights here. Well, we gotta be a little bit more careful then. I think we're probably about there. Okay. We're gonna clean this. I have not washed that brush out at all until this point. With the technique that we were doing there, if you rinse your brush out constantly, you're gonna end up fighting some bad stuff there. Alright, we're gonna throw down a little bit of pale pink on there, but we're not gonna use hardly any of it. We're gonna mix it just a little bit into our magenta. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna take some of our pale pink, some of our magenta. We're just making an even lighter pink, and we're just really gonna catch some places and give it a much brighter Like, it doesn't look that bright on the palette next to some of the stuff, but when it hits the model, it's like kaboom, right? So we're just working them in nice and slow. If you're watching, feel free to let me know if you like it or hate it or anything. And add a little bit of water into our wet palette. I think we must be getting a little dry. Things are drying out. Oh, I know what's going on. The fan blowing and stuff. I was like, why are these paints drying out so bad? This is almost like a dry brush. Very, very close. We probably got just a little bit more paint, and it's a little different motion. We're not going sideways against ridges to try to catch them. We're just using it really controlled here, so that we get the effect we're looking for here. We're just trying to catch. Trying to add these layers of color in here. We still haven't done any of the highlight work with a traditional brush, which is saving us massive amounts of time, right? There's pretty much all this purple work, all the highlights on the purple. You know, we've done in 25 minutes. We base coated last time, but all the highlights here. It's hard to argue with that for 25 minutes worth of work, right? And then I'm going to decide if we'll add one more level or not. I haven't decided yet. If we do one more, what we might do is take some of the same highlight color that's on the scales, which is pale yellow, and throw that onto this, onto the why can't I think of it? Whatever I said we were calling these things. On the fins, there we go. That's what I was calling them. We might throw some of that on the fins because it'll help tie it all together, and it'll give it a fairly unifying light source then if we do that, which is always good. I think it was Sam last night that suggested pink, and that's definitely where we ended up is pink, and I think we're fine. Very synthwave. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, we definitely need to go brighter. We're not nearly as bright as we need to be here. But we're definitely gonna do at least one more. Sometimes colors being real saturated, like this pink is, will fool you into thinking that you're a lot more bright than you are. But the reality is, I'm not that bright. So I've mixed a little bit of my pale yellow into this now, and we're gonna be really, really cautious with this. And we really only want a few places. It's very controlled. And it'll make it look a little shiny is what it'll do. Yeah, we're much brighter here. I'm just trying to add these highlights here. This is the level of highlight that's really going to make things pop. Like this is the highlight level that feels scary. It makes it go from like that's cool to like oh wow. Right? See how that's really kicking it up a notch? Without this highlight level, it's just a very much less impressive paint job. We're just kind of carefully scumbling our highlight on here. I don't know if we're going to end up doing any airbrushing on this part or not. Kind of felt like I would, but I'm looking at it now. I don't know if we will or not. What we have right now is a really, 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 really light pink with some light yellow mixed into it. And we're just being really, really careful. And what we're really kind of doing is desaturating some edges to give it a much more punchy look, right? We're just really trying to kick it up here is all we're doing. Just take it to that next level where it's just like, whoa. Yeah, it's really I'm liking it. This is the part that most people find scary is when we get really, really bright. but it's the part that really starts to separate. If we want to be real smooth with it, I'm adding some texture right now instead of being super smooth. If we wanted to be real smooth with it, we can get out the airbrush. We can do glazes. I'm not really a fan of super smooth. I just don't think most of the time it looks realistic. So I like things having a little bit of texture. I probably like them a little bit better. They're both good. I find that the smush brushes, they tend to last longer. I don't know if that's because I take better care of them, but we just had a problem with like the elf brushes. I was going through them so quickly they would get all stiff and stuff on me. All right, what do we got here? I don't really love the tail here, but I think that's partly sculpt issue. Alright, I think that's good. Alrighty, we need to do his whisker thingies, his mouth area, his eyes. 1 second, guys. We're going to let that get good and dry. 1 second. Alright. One second. Alrighty. Is anybody watching having issues with the stream? One person just let me know that they were having issues with the stream being really choppy. Has anybody else kind of noticed anything? Having any issues? So if you are, please let me know. Okay. Okay. So we need to do these little thingies. I know his face in general. Luckily, a lot of the kind of look that I want on his face. Alright, guys. Appreciate that. Luckily, the kind of overall look that I want on his face is almost done. All the shading, highlighting, and all that we did kind of worked out in our favor there. So we need to do his tongue, his teeth, his eyes, and his little whiskey things, right? So, I think what we'll do is go ahead and get a layer on the tongue. We're going to try largely to kind of stay in the same realm that we did the other guy. Because I want them to feel like they're, they're similar. Like I want somebody to look and be like, "Oh, those are like brother dragons or something." So we're going to try to stay in the same realm for some of these things so that they look related. Which means this kind of pinky mouth. We're going to use some natural bone color on the teeth. And then we'll figure out exactly how we're going to shade the his whisker, his big horn things. I did the others bonish. Not necessarily bone, but kind of in that realm. I don't know if I want to do that here because having that warm bone tone would feel really strange. Just trying to get a good solid base coat on this tongue here. So I think what we'll probably do is like a cool white for his horns, I guess. Huh. I guess. Thanks, man. I just I'm lazy and I don't like to take a long time painting things. So I think a lot about techniques that I can use to paint faster and do, and a lot of it is talking about it a little bit last night and everything. A lot of it is what Aaron Lovejoy and I may steal his thing. That is the world's freaking tiniest dragon eye. Like, look at that thing. That it's like way down in there and it's super duper tiny. I don't think we're gonna be able to do the same kind of thing we did before. It's drawing your attention where I want you to look and away from where I don't want you to look. You know, there's a lot of things on this figure that are not like crazy well done. But the point is you're in awe of the things I want you to be in awe of. So you're not looking at the rest of the things. And that's really important to do, especially for studio and commission work and stuff like that. Like, you'll just make your life a lot easier if you learn how to draw a viewer's eye. Alright, we're gonna do some bone color. This is just a Reaper bone color. I really like their bone triad. I'm almost all pro acryl for a lot of things, but the Reaper bone triad is one that I still often pull out just because I like it so much. That, I got poor coverage out of that though. You know what I might do? Just because I'm gonna bump this color up. I just dropped it in paint. That sucks. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, one of the biggest things speeding up has just been getting away from the need to feel like everything's got to be done with the pointed round brushes, and you can 90% of this figure up to this point has been done with these two brushes for this and a little bit of airbrush, and it just makes it go so much faster. Obviously you can't do that for every figure, but if you plan ahead, you can do it for a surprising number of figures. But if you don't plan ahead, then you get kind of trapped in this, well, I've already painted this area that's really close to something else, so I can't use a technique that allows me to speed up. So you've got to really pay attention to the order that you paint things. Sometimes to get fast. There's a little bit on his face. I'm probably going to do a little bit of manual work. We'll see. Up around his eyes and stuff like that. For Mini Monthly? Okay, cool. Don't tell Sergio I told you to do that. I'll deny everything. You can, however, tell Aaron and Liz. Sergio's Patreon is not bad. It's not. It's just as long as you want to paint like that, you have to want to be super airbrush heavy. This paint's taking a long time to dry right now. All of a sudden, it's kind of bugging me. Let's get a base coat on his horny things. We need a real light blue. Let's take, what is this? Gray blue, sure. Yeah, Sergio's, and dude's just a drop dead amazing painter. You just have to want to paint like Sergio once, cool. So I've considered doing a Patreon. It's something where it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to constantly provide value for somebody to do that. And I already have so many other things going on that I'm like, I don't know if I want to make that kind of a commitment to constantly provide value to people because they're paying me a monthly fee for that, So, like, I feel like if I did a Patreon, I would need to be putting out, stuff, multiple things every month to compete with somebody else. And it's like, when do I have time to do that? In the midst of everything else. So I have not yet done that. If I did do it, it would probably be focused mainly on coaching. Coaching is something I enjoy, and I think it'd be easier to fit in the schedule. But doing one that was strictly like tutorials and stuff like that is just not something that I think I have time to do, even if I really wanted to. Because making good videos where it's not just a live stream like I'm doing, but produced content takes a lot of work. I used to do that as a business. I used to make commercials and other various things that required a lot of video production. And I mean, if you're looking at a 10-minute commercial, that's hours and hours and hours of work to get to a 10-minute commercial. All right. So we're just going to start highlighting this guy up. The idea here is that he's just got these kind of white fang thingies, these white whisker bone, whatever these are supposed to be, right? Yeah, exactly. And I just, I don't feel like I'm at a place where I can provide that content, because I have people ask me all the time, do you have a Patreon? Do you have a Patreon? Do you have a Patreon? Because I like to teach, I like to educate people. But I'm just like, it's a lot of work. So much work. And I'm just not sure that that's something that I want to be putting that much effort into, right? Dragon boogers? Yeah, right. That's what they are, man. Totally dragon boogers. 100%. Okay, we're just gonna probably do that for that. Missed a little bit on the teeth here. You know what? I actually need this right here. Should be, come on. I hate it when my paints end up too thin and I have to put down multiple coats. Like, no. Like, you don't understand. I'm a one coat guy. Like, I don't know. What's interesting is when I did Sergio's class, just hitting stuff left and right here. When I did Sergio's class, we were very literally not allowed to thin our paints, you know, and tell that to most people, and they're like, "What?" And you know, but the reality is, as long as you're using a decent quality paint and you have some level of kind of understanding how your paint works, you don't need to be religious about thinning your paint. You know? Let's start highlighting the tongue a little bit here. What we'll do is we'll put fairly strong highlights in, and then we'll come back in and we'll glaze over. This tongue is a bit more pronounced than the other one, so it's going to require a bit more work. The other one we were able to get away with not doing a whole lot on. We definitely spent some time on it, but not a lot. Thing to remember too is, you know, these are all fantasy characters, and they exist in environments that you get to define. You know, nobody's telling you what kind of lighting and stuff is in your environment. So because of that, you know, you don't have to paint everything totally realistic as far as the lighting goes and everything. Like, as long as it's kind of like the rule of cool. Like, a lot of this stuff, as long as it looks cool, like, do it. Like, I have people who will tell me, you know, well, the light wouldn't do that. You're absolutely right. It would 100% not do what I did there, but it looks a lot cooler than what it would actually do. Thin coats, I know, right? I'm just going crazy. I probably have a little too much highlight on this tongue. I'm looking at it on camera, and I'm like, man, that looks insane. That's okay. I think we're gonna glaze some red or something like that over it and tone all this way down. We do need to bring our mid-tones back a little bit here. Here. There we go. You watched one of Sergio's Patreon? Is that what you mean? Because, yeah. Trying to add a little bit of depth here. Alright. Take and do some bone on the teeth here. I think what we're going to do with the teeth is because these are well sculpted teeth, which means they're very well defined on this model. Which means they will do well if we kind of over highlight to a few levels and then wash then add like one more highlight, we'll get a nice soft blend without too much effort. But it'll look like we did. It's gonna look like we did a lot more than we did if we do it right. You can only do that if the teeth are like reasonably well defined, right? The teeth aren't well defined. It just looks like a hot mess when you try to do that. Just catching the inside of his kind of gum area there. Oh, then Coates, that was your reaction to his first video? Yeah, yeah. Where he's just like laying it down and yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Because he's just putting on like crazy thick coats and you're like, no, Duncan said. Yep. 100%. To do. I think we can't put this eye. There are literally 28mm human eyes that are bigger than this guy. So I don't think we're gonna be able to do like an alligator or a cat's eye or something. We're gonna need to just give him kind of a glowing eye. It's just too small for the size of the sculpt. To do kind of what we did on the other one. The other eye was much larger. All right. We're going to take our nice little smush brush. I'm going to take some of our pale pink and we're just going to do that because I was just not liking. There we go. I'm liking that better. And then what we'll do is we'll just come back in with a glaze or a wash and work that differently there. Just trying to blend it in just a little bit. This tongue is just not. I get the feeling I'm never gonna like this tongue. It really is ridiculously small. It's like crazy. I was talking the other day with somebody and I was showing them the big I guess it'd be an ogre, but it's really an orc that I've been working on forever now. And I was I was saying how he's like this like 3 or 4 inch model with a tiny head then and like the world's tiniest eyes. Literally, it's like the eyes the size of like a dark sword mini, which already have tiny eyes. We're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do. I think we're gonna do like bright red eyes. We're gonna go ahead and do those while other things are drying. Okay. Well, we're gonna. I think what we're gonna do on this is we're going to brighten it, make it really bright, and then throw some darker wash in there, and then re-highlight it. We'll see. I don't know if we'll do that or not. Looking okay right now. Probably some some orange next on the eye. We're definitely trying to use these kind of contrasting colors on the eyes so that we draw attention to them on both of the dragons that we've been doing. Right? Trying to stay more in the middle here. The world's smallest eye. Okay. That was a red and an orange. Now we're just going to put a dot of orange here. Now, what we really need is a teeny tiny reflection with a little bit of white. There we go. And there we go. All right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, I think we can. I think it looks pretty good. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to do much more with the teeth after all. They're not looking too bad just the way they are. You might throw one little highlight on a few of them here. And then we'll probably call the teeth good. I don't know if we'll end up doing what I thought we were going to do after all. The tongue we're definitely going to do something with. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy with that eye on this miniature at this point in the whole thing. Okay. Okay. I'm going to say at this point, the only thing I really want to do probably is I think I want to do slightly more on his snot. Just a very little bit more. These should be a little more like pure white. They might look like that on camera, but in real life they're not. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. And then we're gonna do the tongue. I think what we're gonna do on the tongue is let's do a red glaze or red wash. I don't think, didn't I find out? I think I found out I don't have any red wash. I think that solves it right there. We'll do a red glaze. We'll take a little transparent red. We'll throw it over. That should bring our contrast down a little bit. Push it into a slightly different color family and kind of probably be where we want it. And then we can always work it back up to something we want. If we just feel like this just absolutely destroys what we're looking for, we can always just paint over it. Probably should not have finished the teeth before I did all this. As I get something on a tooth. When you're doing a glaze, when you're doing a transparent glaze, you're inevitably going to reduce your contrast a little bit. So if you overpaint your contrast, you'll keep some of it and lose other bit and whatever. So if you're gonna intentionally kind of glaze down afterwards, you need to start out higher than you expect. Alright, so for the most part, that's kind of where we want to end up. But we lost a little too much, so we're going to mix some of our highlight with the glaze tone and start adding some back in, just a little wet on wet here. We're just taking a little bit of our glaze, and if we can do this fast enough, then we'll essentially be doing a little bit of wet blending here. And we'll end up with a nicely highlighted tongue here. That is showing way different on camera than it does in real life. Not gonna lie. Like, that is not nearly as dramatic right here. Like, that looks like crazy on camera. Does not. We want it to look shiny though, so, you know, to some degree that's okay. I think we're almost ready to call this guy done. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with the, I totally forgot about the arms. These stupid arms. I was like, I'm done! No, I'm not. Alright, let's just start figuring out how we want to do the arms, because I really don't love the arms in general. They're just kind of weird. Luckily, none of them are like super important. I guess on this side they definitely are a little bit more. This one is one of the better sculpted, so we can kind of get away. We're not too worried about this one. He's got these little fins down here that are like kind of there. I'm not gonna worry a lot about them because I just think with everything else going on this mini, like, nobody's gonna be like, oh my gosh, his arms are not amazing. This arm looks like it just came out rough off the printer or something. Like, not exactly sure what's going on with this arm. He's got a little fin back here. It's almost entirely in shade. So we really only need to hit it with like one level of highlight. And just a little one at that. Just enough so that if we see something that looks like it's there. I think on the rest of these, we're just going to give them just kind of the illusion that something's going on without really. And if I feel like it before I take pictures, I'll come back in and do a little more on the actual arms and legs. We'll see. But I think this guy does need. This arm is in a reasonably major place, and he's got like way more fins than anybody else. I'm not sure why. Like this arm, like much different than the rest. Like, it definitely is. Like, this arm is like the arm to rule all arms, right? Like, the other arms are like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be subjugated. This arm is like, take it. I don't even know what's going on down in his paw here. Like, I'm totally clueless what what is going on there. Does he have claws? I guess he has some sort of claw. The claw. The claw. Little Toy Story there. I'm gonna highlight this stuff up real quick. Let's give it something. Don't want it to be quite as bright as the other things. Last thing we want to do is like draw attention to this stuff. But we want to make sure that got something, but we don't want make it super bright. Super bright. Super bright. We're super bright now. Right, I guess he's got claws. I'm looking at it. These look kind of claw-like. Let's give him just a little bit of claws. How long are we going to end up on this guy? Right now we're right at about 3 hours. That's including, like, you know, painting on stream, which is inevitably much slower. I'm going to be really picky about the angles that I take here. Try to hide some of these claws that just are not well sculpted. Like, it's got nothing to do with painting them, it's just you'll hear me talk about pictures because a lot of the work I do these days, they're for Kickstarters, and literally all the Kickstarter wants is pictures. Like, I get to keep the models and they sit on my shelf and I can do whatever the heck I want with them. All I'm selling are pictures. So because of that, obviously pictures, I've got to constantly be thinking about how things look from certain angles and stuff like that. And for the clients who accept that kind of a deal, then they get a rather significant discount. So I think we're going to call him done. What do we think? I think we're going to call him done. I think I'm relatively happy with it. Well, I mean, if it looks good to you, then that definitely means something. Don't discount yourself just because you feel like you're not a professional or whatever. Like, it these are intending to be sold to people, so don't discount what a person's view means. Like, if you were looking at the paint job on this dragon, the question is, you know, would you be inspired to want one of these looking at? That's the real goal. Like, would you look at this and think, that's freaking sweet? You know? So that's kind of the goal. All right. We're going to call him done. His brother's done. So I will be putting up official pictures of these guys soon. And we're going to start on Mr. Dwarf. And we're going to make some progress on Monsieur Dwarf here. Ooh, it looks like I got a little bit of pink on him somehow during all that. This is a really easy miniature, luckily. It's like it's like skin, pants, boots, weapon, hair. That's it. So let's see how much we can kind of do on him. I'm going to yeah. So that's the goal, is to have people be like, yeah, that's worth spending some money on a Kickstarter. I think one thing I'm seeing real quick that I don't like is, from a certain angle, this is a little blue instead of pink. Yep, there we go. All right, I'm good with that. Okay. Yeah, I think it looks cool. All right, so I think the main thing we're gonna do on this guy is try to get skin started. I don't know that I'm gonna stay on too long to do a lot with it, but we're gonna get the skin going here. We'll throw a couple of airbrush coats on the skin, see how that goes. At least get that rolling. My air pressure feels like it's way up, but it's not. It feels like it's like friggin' 40, but it's 20. You know what? Let's use some of the Pro Acryl skin colors. I never use those. Do this, and then do this. We'll go like that. Sure. So let's start off with a base coat of skin. I like base coating skin. A lot of people, you know, work up from the shadows. The problem with working up from the shadows, a lot of times, for me at least, is you end up staying really dark. It feels scary to go light, and if you stay really dark, that's just a problem that a lot of painters have, is they just never learn to get brighter, and that's a real issue. And getting brighter is what separates a lot of painters. Like one of the times, what I want to do is take something like this that was literally 3 hours to paint, right? Like, you saw this happen live, 3 hours. There was nothing that happened on this model that wasn't in 3 hours. 3 hours included assembly. Pretty well. Nah, did I assemble the day before, or did I? No, I assembled the day before. I'm dropping stuff. So it did not include assembly. I was wrong there. Where it's relatively easy to do, and like leave 1 or 2 highlight levels off and just show what the difference of like taking it up 1 or 2 levels is. Right, we're just gonna give him some skin. We've got a green undercoat on him right now. Green is actually a really traditional undercoat from skin. We'll see how much of the green I end up putting back or whatnot. Green is a very, like, if you know who Frank Frazetta is, like, big time fantasy art guy, right? His skins often contain a lot of green. So I thought about kind of doing like Frank Frazetta skin on this guy, but we'll just have to see. Right now, we're just focusing on getting. You know what? Let's zoom in here. Boop. And then Boop. There we go. And a little too close. Doesn't leave me a lot of working room. There we go. I really like my new camera setup. Like, it allows me a lot more flexibility and a lot clearer images on stuff than my old one. Alright, that was just Pro Acryl Tan Flesh. I always feel like for a tan flesh, it's surprisingly, what's the word? Surprisingly bright. Like, I feel like it should be much darker. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up a highlight. When I'm doing flesh tones, when I'm airbrushing flesh tones, I like to go brighter and then come back under with a shadow tone afterwards. I feel like otherwise, for whatever reason, I lose too much contrast. Nature of airbrushing, something like that. This is pale pink. So it's not going to take much of this. We're just going to basically zenithal here from above with a few passes of this. I'm not sure how visible this is going to be on this. I'm literally just not sure. This is a color recipe I've never done, but theoretically it should work, kind of thing. Okay, we're seeing something that's just looking really pale at this point, because the problem is we've taken a lot of the color out of his skin, especially starting since we started green and then we put and then we put a red over it. We immediately desaturated a lot of it. So what we don't have right now are a lot of reds. Right? There's a huge difference between Reaper Tan. That's like when I saw Tan Flesh for Pro Acryl, I was like, oh great, like I know that color. And then like the first time I did skin with it, I was like, what? Like, come again? I was like, that is not how I expected this to go. So I have not done, I love Pro Acryls, but I've not done much skin with the Pro Acryl because I just haven't found a recipe that I love for doing their skin with the Pro Acryl. Whereas with Reaper, it's just like they're triads and then just go up and down a little bit from the triad, and it's just super easy. But I would like to do more with the Pro Acryl. So that's what we're attempting to do right now. Like, I know that I can do it because the reality is I can do skin and oils. I can make my own skin tones from base colors if I want. I just, you know, I'm a speed painter who's trying to maximize efficiency. The last thing I want to do is mix all of my own colors. That's like a layer of hell, you know? So alright, so now what we're going to do is we've got Shadow Flesh. We're going to come from a very extreme angle here. And we're going to see how that takes. And then we're going to come a little more over here. Come a little more over there. Yeah, we got a little too much red there. But overall, we're kind of in the right ballpark there. I think he's too red in the face. Now it looks like... oh, goodness. I've never had a paint job. Some people are like, oh, I only airbrush skin. Like, skin is entirely done after airbrushing. I have just never seen a paint job where after I airbrush skin, I'm like, oh, I don't have to touch that at all with a brush. Like, never. Like, and I airbrush a lot. Like, but it just never works out that way for me. Just cleaning out the airbrush here real quick. For airbrush cleaner, what I use is 50. This is 50% alcohol, high percentage isopropyl alcohol, and 50% windshield wiper cleaner. And it's crazy cheaper than like Vallejo airbrush cleaner or something like that. And honestly, it works better. Now, right, it would be really nice. I just find that I never get the kind of contrast that I want. Now this is where my brain is telling me just go use the Reaper tones and it'll be a lot easier. So like I'm fighting this like need to go use my Reaper tones, but I'm gonna fight it. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna try to map out our tones a little bit by hand. I think all we're gonna do is just kind of use our makeup brushes just to kind of do some controlled passes with them on the with a midtone. Skin actually really needs some texture. Like when it's too smooth, it doesn't look right. So we're gonna come in, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm only doing downward strokes here. And we're just adding in some texture, some more specific things. He looks really bright on camera. He's not quite that bright in real life. And turn my exposure down here. That's probably a little closer. He's really red, but that's kind of the, like, I really want that kind of sunburnt, like, feel. And I think I am going to try to add in some greens because it'll give it that kind of Frank Frazetta feel that I think will look really good for this style of figure. But you can see we got a nice start from the airbrush. Like it set us off in a good direction. We just don't get to end there, right? Like if this was a tabletop job, like there'd be a large part of this that would already be done. Now the problem we've got, and this is maybe why on this figure I should have gone and airbrushed a base dark coat first, but we've got this area back here that we don't really like, that is super bright that should not be bright. So we're gonna have to do something about that in a controlled manner. So we're gonna take some of our shadow flush, and I think what we're gonna do is thin that down considerably and kind of throw that back there and let it settle back in there and see what happens. Because right now we're still kind of just sketching in, like we're not real worried about, you know, we have 5 minutes on this figure, right? Oop. Hey, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. Why in the world are none of my bots? I just realized none of my bots are working. My alerts aren't working. Gosh, I hate this stuff sometimes. Like, I have no idea why none of that is working. It just doesn't make any sense. Let's go ahead and throw in some Frazetta green into this. Let me think about what kind of green I want. I think I want like a this is a black green. I think we're gonna take some of that. We're gonna thin it down and just kind of throw it in our shadows a little bit. We're just gonna see what happens here. This is just a real thin glaze of green here. We're just gonna start working that into some of these places, and it'll just, we won't leave it that green, but it'll just influence kind of as we work on it. your actual skin tone has a good amount of green in it. You can see this is starting to already not look too bad for just the amount of time we've spent on it. Like it could look a lot worse, right? Throwing some reds in here. We're gonna, I think we've got a little black here. I'm just gonna let this kind of go back in here. This dude has no neck. Like, not even the slightest hint of a neck. Like, can you imagine how much this guy spends at the gym? Like this dude lives in the gym, y'all. A little bit of purple around. We're just trying to get some interesting colors. We went a little too dark back in these shadows. That's okay. Like I said, we're just playing around with the skin right now. Seeing kind of the direction that we want to go. Letting some art kind of flow a little bit here and see where it takes us, huh? Let's throw some yellow. Real light yellow. I think this is the, up around here is the part that's really bothering me. Like, that's just way too light back in there. I'm just sketching in some stuff right now. Just trying to let the miniature kind of talk to us a little bit here. That happens a lot where, like, on a miniature like this, where there's just a lot of skin and stuff like that, just kind of start running with it and seeing what happens. Like, somebody on a group the other day, on a Facebook group, was like, you need to lay out all of your colors and then just follow one to the other. And I'm like, that makes sense if the goal is to paint like an army fast. That 100% makes sense there. If your goal is to like do art, I'm not sure that makes sense. Like, if your goal is to have fun and like figure things out and like whatever, I don't know that it makes sense to like lay everything out and be like, this is how this is gonna go. I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong if you do that. Like, it just feels off to me to like, tell somebody that's how it should be. You know? Okay, I think we're gonna wrap up here, guys. I'm gonna let this kind of dry and then decide what route I'm gonna go with this guy. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet exactly how I'm gonna tackle this guy. He's a fun dude though. He'll be a quick paint overall. I can't imagine him taking a long time. So yep. Just see how it goes. May throw some wash on him, see what happens. I don't know. Let us see. Questions, comments, anything at all. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. This is me signing off. If you've got anything you'd like to say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Alrighty. Have a good evening. Appreciate you hanging out. Au revoir.